Good evening, Melrosians the world over. It's that time of the week again. I'm Tom Catalini.
I'm Sam Hammer.
And I'm Tom Shampoo.
And this is Let's Talk Melrose. Melrose, a show where Melrosians talk to Melrosians about Melrose, and some of those Melrosians rock the block. It is block party season in Melrose over here in Russell Park. We had a great gathering. You fill out the paperwork, you coerce your neighbors into agreeing, and you block off the streets. And we even had live music into the night.
That's a great picture.
So live bands and all that kind of stuff. It was so much fun. And then when the guys came to pick up the barriers, so the DPW drops the barriers. You fill out the form. The chief of police signs at DPW, this, that, and the other. So it's safe. Everybody knows what's going on. If there's a fire, the fire department is aware of what streets are blocked or whatever. The DPW drops the barriers off for you. And then they come pick them up Monday morning. And I asked the guys, because I happened to be around, and they had a truck full of them. They said there were about 4 block parties across Melrose last weekend, probably more coming for 4th of July weekend.
Yeah, so sure.
Melrosians, if you're not doing this, highly recommend you set up your own block party or leech on to somebody else's.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's like a maximum number of permits you can pull per season. Because I think we should maybe just have every, kind of like Memorial Drive, just have every weekend or every Saturday night block
party weekend
somewhere.
Yes, or just like a recurring application for our neighborhood. Just every Saturday, just plan on just drop it. Actually, like just leave the areas here for the season.
So our block party, and again, I love that picture of me and my wife. It's fantastic. Our block party is now 9 years old. We've been doing this for 9 years.
Yes, and
we had a lot of people this past weekend come to the block party. We love it. I mean, they don't care. Everybody's welcome to the block party. So
it's a lot of fun. It's centered in our neighborhood. A lot of our people from the neighborhood, but a lot of friends from other neighborhoods, Melrosians and beyond. So a couple of my brothers came and their families, and so it's a lot lot of
Yeah.
We saw Eugenia Gibbons came by.
Yes, EG was in the house.
Made a pop in.
So it's been good.
I had to find that for a second.
Oh my God.
So, and before we get too deep into the show, I just wanted to put a shout out to our own Jenny Electric, who it was all the way on the other coast of the United States and found a little taste of home on Melrose Ave in, what is this, Los Angeles?
LA, yeah.
I
believe it's LA.
So there she is, painted up and ready for some shenanigans out there. We don't have the full report, but we are expecting a full correspondence report. If you're friends with her on Facebook, the vacation is sort of off the charts in number of locales and fun stuff and
pictures. And there is a story. Apparently, there's a story about that paint that she had on, but we haven't heard the story yet. So there's a story as to why she had that neon paint.
There's got to be a lot of stories, but I mean, I got to stop looking at Facebook because I'm like mowing the lawn and taking care of my laundry, and then Jenny Electric is just like, rocking it.
Well, I have had the pleasure of living her alt life in her home, almost sleeping over a few times. So taking care of the cat and then some. But
that's a big responsibility.
We can confess, I think, on air, but just don't tell Jenny Electric. We had the show staff meeting for tonight's show at her house last night.
Oh, that's right.
I was about to have like a guest book for people to sign in for all the people who, not that many, came through, but we saw it. We did. You saw Eugenia again today. The Charlie a few days ago. Tom and Linda.
Well, I think the key, Sam, is you always made sure there was at least one competent adult in attendance, and that's I think the parameters we're working within the city boundary of Melrose and on Jen's property.
Speaking of amazing people, Sam, tell us who we have tonight on the show. Because we haven't even mentioned who our guest is.
I'm so excited to have my friend Thais DeMarco on the show tonight. I was saying one of the coolest, a good way to cool down today is to have one of the coolest people in Melrose on. So I'm really excited for you all to. It's like between last week and this week, it's kind of like, who are the people in your neighborhood? So I'm excited for you guys to get to know her better.
Well, the show is about Melrosians talking to Melrosians about Melrose and whatnot, and it is great to meet people in town. So this is great. Thanks for bringing her on the show. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I was almost going to have her come meet me at Jen's pool to do the show together from there, but then I know, I'm sorry, but then I couldn't take the heat anymore. I had to.
Well, and for the few Melrosians that don't have access to Jen's pool, the Lloyd Memorial Pool is open. Also from 11:45 a.m. to 6:45 p.m. Tomorrow. And did you see this thing down at Fred Green Field? I snagged a screenshot from somebody's Facebook post.
Yeah, fantastic.
The Melrose Fire Department was down there, Fred Green Field, from 1 to 2 p.m. today, and they're doing it again tomorrow. You can go frolic in the water spray and bring a towel, bring sunscreen, and bring drinking water. That water is not for drinking.
Not potable water.
And this is what is branded as the splash bath.
Right.
I love that. Can anybody go? Are you going to go tomorrow?
I got meetings, so I can't. Yeah,
we'll try to find somebody for down
can't
there.
attend. So, I'm going to leave it at that.
and then the library is also open late to help folks if they want to go spend more time at the library to stay cool. And they're going to be open until 9 p.m. through Thursday of this week.
Because they have air conditioning over there, right? That's. I mean, it's not only the reading, but just a place to stay cool without having to get hosed.
And then again, as a courtesy, just make sure you check on your neighbors. It's a heat wave. It's really bad.
Yes. Yep.
Check on neighbors. Check on the elderly, those folks who are living alone maybe. And just be kind, hydrate, sunscreen, and stay cool.
Heat exhaustion is no joke, and it comes up pretty quickly on you. I've had it before. It's not good. It's not
more people. We'll skip the factoids. I don't want to get grim and but yes, the heat can be bad. So
well, at least you'll have a good time in a few days for 4th of July, right?
Yes, there's a cold front coming through. It's gonna be cooling down.
Excellent.
So the weather's going to change dramatically, and then I actually don't know what's going on in town, if anything. For 4th of July is there any parade? We don't do a 4th of July parade. We don't do fireworks, but we used to back in the day go up to Wakefield. I don't know if they're doing their fireworks. Does anybody know?
I don't know about fireworks. Oh, go ahead. Not parade. But I don't know about fireworks. I don't know. We don't know anything about this, but we don't have plans. I just put out a text for a barbecue, but Tom, the Toms may not be around.
I will be in New Hampshire on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get up to Maine this weekend for a part or all of the weekend. It's just fantastic up there by the coast. But wherever you are, it's going to be cool. So we'll get a little bit of a break. But since we didn't have any information on that, why don't we go to the news-like segment of the show and find out what else we know?
Porch Fest is back.
Yes,
it's back.
Porch Fest is back.
What is Porch Fest, Sam Hammer?
Porch Fest is an awesome time. I don't know if this is our second or third, actually maybe probably third Porch Fest.
Third at least, yeah.
Where basically if you host on your porch or you play in a band and there's a map and you kind of travel all over the city and just listen to music and hang out and party. It's pretty good. So I'm excited.
It's fantastic. I don't know if there were, I had the map. I don't know if there's 30, 40, 50, but it's dozens of places. The third.
Craig,
Thanks, Craig.
what happened? What did you do with your profile?
Please updated
post.
it.
Yeah.
So it's the third Porch Fest, and I don't know, there's 30, 40, 50, there's dozens of locations, and at each location you can see 3 or 4 live acts perform, and you just hang out like in somebody donates their porch or their yard, and people come and hang out. You bring your own drinks and snacks if you want, that kind of thing, and you can move around, and you can't get too far because it's too expansive. But even in one little neighborhood, you can see like a bunch of different acts. It's a ton of fun. I'm so glad it's back. September 25th in the fall. It'll still be nice weather, and it's a great time. So
I feel like I heard the number last year at Porch Fest. I heard the number 140 bands. Would that be right?
That would be right, because like what if I'm
All right.
saying there was 30 or 40 locations and
Venues
3 or
and
4
3
acts.
for each. Yeah, okay.
I could call down to the data science team and have them run that through the supercomputer real quick. So if there's 30 locations with 4 bands each, it's probably that could work. I'm not sure.
I have to carry the
I'll
one.
text the data.
Hang on a second. All right.
The former guest Gina Martinez is on the committee, and top fan BT is on the committee new this year. So
yes, and that is the
next
lead
week.
singer and multi-instrumentalist vocalist from Artisan Cheese and a number of other musical acts that are merging and emerging as a force in the town.
Nice. It's always a fun day. And so, yes, we're excited about that. And then when we're done with the Porch Fest, we have to be calming on our streets. And that leads us to traffic calming. How's that segue?
Perfect.
Bumpy.
Bumpy is right. Speed bumpy. Traffic. There's a traffic calming streets back in play again. There's 6 streets around Melrose that have the signs and barriers and cones that help slow traffic down in certain streets. The 6 streets that they're doing right now, I believe, are Line Street, Briggs Street, Faxon Street, Gooch Street, Linden Road, and Burrell Street. Oh, Burrell. I'm not sure how you pronounce that.
Well, if it's east side, it's Burrell. If it's west side, it's Burrell.
Burrell.
That's what I would say.
I think you're right. So again, this is something that people saw last year. Slow down, take it easy, take a few more seconds to get through neighborhoods. People are out and about, walking around, enjoying the summer.
I have to say, it's kind of bizarre looking when I first saw it in action, because there's just a bunch of cones and stuff in the street, and it's designed to slow you down, but it's not really sort of clear why. And then it's hard to figure out where you're getting like contiguous street space to use. But I think it's more about slowing traffic than anything else, which is maybe hence the name. So
yeah.
It's an interesting experience. It's a low cost, easy thing to experiment with. So I'm glad to see that continuing. I'm not sure where I stand on that necessarily. I think it's probably a good thing, but it's just, I like the experiment that it's, that it's happening. If that's what the neighbors want to do in their street, why not?
All power to it, right? We closed ours off.
We almost applied, neighbors across the street almost applied for our area to have the slow street, which would have been awesome. And there was like a block captain, and it's a little bit, involved, but I think we would have maybe jazzed it up with some banners or pennants and plants and
Okay, it's like the parklet thing. So what you get in the official issue slow streets kit are the orange cones and just sort of the run of the mill stuff. And it is, so let's say it's heavily focused on function more than form. So that is a brilliant idea I could get into to sort of jazz it up a bit. And because like I said, for somebody like me driving by, like I didn't even know what it was. So that would be good. But there's so many kids in this neighborhood. I'm kind of surprised they're not on this list, but that would be good.
Yeah.
All right. We have to keep it moving along. We got to get to our guests. Who's going to tell us about the Red Cross?
Give blood in July at the Y. Here, I'll post the link. There you go.
There you go. That's it. Give blood. They're actually really in need of blood. So if you have an opportunity to give blood, then there it is.
All right, Sam, introduce our guest. We got to get cooking. I want to get her on the show.
Yep. Not only is she cool, she is.
Oh,
there
sorry.
she comes. That's all right. Bring her on. Oh my God, our viewership just shot up. Thais is a friend. She's an activist. She's a photographer. She is literally stuck in limbo in the green room.
Hello.
She's a mom. She's the full package. She's literally the full package of a human being. So thank you for coming on. We know you're an avid viewer, so you know what you're getting into.
Yes.
Oh, and she still agreed to come on. That's good. That's awesome.
It's always better to know, right? It's always better to know than not to know. And Sam, you're so sweet. Thank you so much for that intro. That was so lovely.
It's so true. I have known of you, but then I think we met a few years back, very officially. But I don't know, your history about. I see you post things about your life in Brazil, but how long have you been in Melrose? What's your story here?
In Melrose since 2012. In this country since 2005.
Oh,
And
where were you pre-Melrose?
In JP, primarily.
And then what brought you from that location in the U.S. to Melrose?
My children's godmothers live here, and I didn't. It's one of those things, right? When you move from Brazil, there's very little that you know about where you're moving to,
right?
And I met Janice and Carolyn met Janice through work, and then met Carolyn, and they are literally the best people you'll ever Melrose. They're the best people you'll ever meet.
Maybe that's next week's guest.
Yes.
That's how we should do it. Each guest that's awesome should nominate the next guest. That's how we're going to get across this town. Anyway,
there we go. Yeah, they were here earlier, and so they're godparents to my kids. And when I was looking for a place to move to, I wanted to move to a place where I had easy access to Janice and Carolyn, who will take my kids like Carolyn did today, and took Elliot into Boston to go to the fountains and, do all those things. So very self-servingly moved to Melrose. And I love it here. I love my neighbors. I love the people. I love the school that my kids go to. It really feels like home in a way that maybe I didn't expect. That coming from so far away, it's kind of hard to find a place that you can really feel like is your home.
And you have two kids, right? And they're at Winthrop?
They're at the Winthrop, yeah. Cora is 10 and going on like 35 or 4, depending on the day. I hope to see this. And Elliot is 7. So they keep me busy.
Yeah. School's out now, so it's busier.
So what else were you doing when you're not raising kids? I heard you were a photographer.
I'm a photographer, and that's what I worked in housing a number of years ago. And then when my daughter was 5, I transitioned into photography full time. I'd been doing it and sort of ended up with 2 full-time jobs, and got to a crossroads and had to make a choice. And photography gave me a lot of flexibility to do.
Is this like weddings and parties? Is it portraiture? Is it landscape? Nature scenes? What is it?
So kind of all of the above. I think professionally, mostly family photography, and then some corporate things. Headshots, and going into a company and doing headshots for 50 people. Cool. Some events as well, not too many weddings. Weddings are hard. I do some.
Is it the bride or the groom or the mother?
It's the day. So it's not the people. It's just all of the equipment that you have to carry on you.
You don't just take your iPhone or no. That would be me. iPhone photography. I just got a text about a little known fact that Thais took the mayoral formal photo of Mayor Inferna that is hanging on the wall in the 2nd floor. And you'll notice it's Gail, not only because the picture is obviously beautiful, but because she is the one woman in a sea of men. So
I was really proud to be able to do that. And I had a really, really nice time with Gail. We went around Melrose to a few different spots that, say Melrose. And it was really nice, but most of all, I think that the moment for me was going and looking at the portraits, and the one woman who's there is somebody that I took a photo of, and that's special to me.
So now that I know she's watching, what would she really like to photograph? Does she need like red M&Ms, or does she have like a silly side? Did you have to distract her somehow?
I because I hate being photographed. I really, I don't know. I have a really nice time with everyone that I photograph. I think primarily because I know what it feels like to be on the other side of the camera. So funny story, I learned photography because my grandfather, who raised me, who is over there on the mantelpiece, and you can't see him because it's dark and he's all the way over there, but he raised me, and he was a photographer. And I figured out from the time I was very little that I hated having my own photo taken. And if I asked him to show me what he was doing, he couldn't be taking pictures of me. Yes. And so that's how I ended up learning photography. Another funny
By
story.
trying to avoid being photographed.
Yeah, exactly. Hiding the other side of the camera.
Yes, exactly. And so funny story about my grandfather. I didn't know what a bidet was until I was very, very old, because we used it as a developing tray in our bathroom.
Want to Google that real, Tom, you want to Google that real quick and bring up something for the viewers?
I'll skip that part.
So
How to.
We had a bidet that was a developing tray, and I went to somebody's house when I was, I don't know, 16, and I came out of the bathroom. I said, "Who's the photographer?" And she's like, "Nobody." I'm like, "But you have a developing tray in your bathroom." And she goes, "No, I don't." So that's when I learned what a bidet actually was.
I just connected the dots.
Not at my house. Not at my house. That's not what it was for. But yeah, so she was a joy to photograph, and I actually, I don't know, I have a lot of fun with people, and capturing them and capturing connections and all that good stuff. It's fun.
Who would you like to photograph around Melrose that you have not photographed before?
Ooh, who would I like to photograph? How about the hosts of the show? We should do a portrait of all of you together.
That's the answer we're looking for.
Let's do it. We'll make it happen. Yes.
I too,
right.
like you, do not like to be on the other side of the camera, but I'll give it a shot.
Sam is pro level iPhone photography. I don't know if you've
Yes,
ever
she
seen
is.
her.
I know.
It is kind of shocking that like we have similar equipment and her stuff is like off the charts. Yeah.
Yeah. I always feel like it's the kids. The kids are so photogenic. But you're right. You're also an amazing photographer too.
Thank you.
I mean, didn't you teach a class at Follow Your Art?
I did. It was like iPhone photography for tweens. And there was an entire section on selfies. It was amazing. But I only did it once, but it was fun. It was good.
You can ask people how, actually don't, but I can't take selfies. I don't understand. So I need to take a class with you, Sam. You need to teach me how to do that.
Yes.
I would be happy to.
I think we have a trade. We're working on a little
quid pro
barter
quo
here real quick.
No
Because
kidding.
the LTMM budget is quite low for portraiture, I have to admit. Because we spent it all on the data scientists, and I still haven't even got the answer yet
We
to
don't have the answer to that
Tom's
number.
question from
Oh
earlier
my
in the
God,
show.
too funny. So when we were preparing for the show, I love this conversation about housing, and it doesn't always go great when we get together to talk about it. Some choice words get flown around, which would be shocking.
It's a tough topic. It's a complex, tough topic to get your arms around.
So when I said, "Oh, we should have Thais come on the show," she's on this committee, but I don't think she has a housing background. And then I went to I know it's hysterical now that you actually do. So we're going to try to have this conversation. We're going to keep it super high level and try to make it as tangible as possible. Because I thought the housing survey, I did have to open and close it 15 times after it said 60 to 90 minutes to fill out. It didn't actually take that long, but unfortunately it's closed now. I thought it was really good. I thought one of the best parts about it was that the time that it took was to actually read about the issue or about the upcoming question or policy. So I'll put some of that information on there with the link. But what's it like being on the advisory committee? I know now that I know you have a housing background, but what are the things that like you're really looking at, kind of pushing forward?
So as you said, I think housing is such a complicated thing to talk about, and you have to think about what the solutions are from a really wide variety of angles, right? Because there's not one thing that's going to solve the housing problem. There aren't two things, there aren't three things. It's more like 15 things, which is why the survey, the open house online took a while and required a lot of engagement from folks. So we had hundreds of people who filled it out, which was really great. We don't have the answers yet because we extended it through Sunday. So we have a meeting on Thursday morning, and I'm really looking forward to that.
We could have our data analytics team pitch in if you want. I could maybe
That would
give
be
a hand.
amazing.
Yeah.
Send them over to MAPC and help them out.
Okay.
So you know what it was like. It was great. Some of the folks who are on the committee are people that I've worked with before, like Dana Lewinter, who worked with we worked together. We worked in Somerville at the same time. So so it was really nice. And then it was also really nice to meet a lot of folks like Jerome, who's also on the committee. And yeah, it was really great. Those conversations are always really interesting to have because, again, you have to think about it from so many different angles, and different people bring different backgrounds and different experiences about housing that really inform the conversation.
So what is the foothold for somebody who is not reading the survey, is not going to the committee meetings? Yeah, you even talked about the solutions, but like, how do you even articulate the problem, or like, where does somebody who's not spent the time to get engaged at that level? What's the foothold? Like, what's the hook? How do you explain it to them? Or is there an issue you pull out, or I don't know?
So I think for in a really good way and in a really terrible way, we don't even have to explain what the housing problem is in Melrose, because anybody who's trying to buy a house in Melrose right now understands exactly what the problem is, right? Anybody who's trying to rent a place in Melrose right now understands exactly what the problem is. You can't.
Okay, just to state the obvious, it's too expensive. The prices are too high. That's what you're saying. Okay,
exactly. The prices are really, really high.
But for everybody who owns property in Melrose, that's a good thing. Is it not?
Well, I mean, it kind of depends on how you feel about where you want to live, right? Do you want to live in a place that's super, super exclusive, and where if your neighbor sells their house, there's only going to be one type of person who can buy the house next door to you? If you don't care about those things, then, you know, maybe you can make the point that, hey, you know, let's have housing be as expensive as possible. I personally don't really want to live in a place where everyone looks the same and everyone has a lot of money and everyone, I like, I mean, as an immigrant, maybe it's, you know, obviously I would like to see more diversity. But I think, you know, there are a lot of different things that go into a conversation about what a city should look like that go beyond just how much I can make when I sell my house.
So that's all right. That's great, because you've given me the foothold now. That's a great response to that. And I grew up in a city of immigrants, Milltown in the central Mass called Fitchburg, and the immigrants lived in different parts of town. My family's in the Italian section, and so now it's, you know, decades later, and it is an affordable place to live, but it's not a place you might want to live. You know, I'm not sure I would want to go back there with, you know, because the other story you hear is people like, oh, you know, your kids want to be able to buy a house in the town they grew up in, like that kind of thing. They're for probably a variety of reasons, you know, not the least of which is like proximity to work in Boston, and, you know, it's 60 miles out and all of that. But there are other attributes that it's not that attractive. It's affordable, but it's not, I don't know if that's where I would, it's that desirable. So like, is that like, how do you balance these things?
So I think it's, again, you know, it's a question too of how do we make things equitable, right? Who deserves to live in places that are really, really nice to live in? Is it only people who can afford it because they have a lot of money, or do we need to create opportunity for people who don't have a lot of money or who haven't had the opportunity to live in these really nice places to also live in those nice places? You know, do we need to create more room for kids to go to school in a school system where they can thrive without having to take the bus for 2 hours?
Well, see, it's funny that you say that, because my issue, and I don't sort of deeply study this stuff, but my intuition is like, I don't understand why schools are funded from local taxes versus, let's say, the federal government makes all schools the same no matter where they are. And it's not so correlated to better schools in a wealthier community or whatever. So you could really divorce it from the real estate market, is another angle on that.
So very, very, very agree with you, Tom. all the way to like, I need to buy you a drink right now.
Oh, okay. All right.
Air horn. There you go.
You know?
Maybe a Manhattan.
That's whatever you
Wait,
want.
Wait, all right. Okay.
But yeah, it's a really complicated conversation because we've
Yeah.
made the ability to go to a good school system, which then means the ability to go to a good college, which then means how much money you're going to make and where you're going to be able to buy a home, all contingent on this thing. So there's so much to talk about
those are good frames of reference for me, though. So thank you for that, because those are good kind of footholds into it for somebody who's not studying it deeply, just to get that big picture sense of it. So
yeah, I would agree. I feel like framing it in that sense of making a community as diverse as we can make it, and having anybody have the opportunity to move into a town is connected to housing. That direct connection, I think, for people isn't made. And so that conversation alone, by saying housing is one of the answers, or housing is one of the ways that we open up the city for other people, that I think alone is an important part of the conversation.
And I think part of the work that they've been doing is trying to help Melrose articulate a vision for our future. What type of city do we want to become? So having some sort of, again, articulated vision that we can hear a million times, so that everybody does agree that yes, maybe the cost of housing as it goes down through these certain things that we might be doing here, including the next one I might just bring up really quickly, is for the betterment of the community, which is going towards the community that I want. So one thing we were tackling was about the accessory dwelling units, which I'm super pumped by, because I think, again, Tom Catalini was talking about how impactful it was to have an in-law apartment when he and his beautiful, lovely, talented wife were married, but then how many other people in his family had to live in that apartment to do that exact same thing.
Well, not had to, but had the opportunity to live there inexpensively to get a foothold and to get your start and things. So it's an investment that my parents made, and they weren't by any measure wealthy, but they made a strategic choice about family and having my grandmother live adjacent to us. And so first of all, as growing up in a family where that proximity is its own sort of payback, but then over the years, multiple of us lived in that apartment for one time or another, and it really does help you kind of get rolling.
Yeah.
Right. And that's one of the potential things that we're looking at. But again, as Sam was saying, I think the key thing about this entire process and having this committee come together and talk it through, but then present it to the community and have people go through and read and tell the city, okay, these are the things that we want to see, or these are some of the things that we want to see, so we can get to some common ground, right? We're never going to agree on every single thing that needs to happen in order to create a community that's going to make everybody happy. But we can get to enough common ground by looking at these things and all of us participating together and picking, this is important for me, this is important for me, this is important for me.
What are some of the things you think the city should do, or that you're advocating for out of that menu of options?
So primarily for me, my background is in affordable housing, and I have seen firsthand the impact that has both on people's ability to move to a community that's really attractive in a lot of these different ways that would not be accessible otherwise, but also for people to stay. I think one thing that we don't necessarily realize is how many people are getting displaced from Melrose, who live here and own a smaller home and have outgrown their home, and just they can't buy a bigger home, and so they have to leave even though they don't have to, they don't want to. Or people who rent here and the rents are skyrocketing and they can't stay. So it's not just about, while I think it's diversity and equity and opening the door to people who are not like most of the people who we see here is really, really important. That's not the only piece of this puzzle. It's also about people who are already here who can't stay and who are getting displaced. So, creating affordable housing in different ways as rental units, but also as homeownership units. I think that's always where I am. Because
But what's the city like? What specifically is like the mayor supposed to do, or the city council? Like, what can the city actually do?
So there can be more development of housing. There can be, the city can figure out ways to fund more affordability for units. There are so many different tools that are available. There's, Community Preservation Act money that we are leaving on the table.
All right, so
year.
so we can't handle too many issues. So let's take that one. Community Preservation Act. What's that, and what did we leave on the table?
It's another show.
She's very good at spoon feeding me the basic concepts. And this is
so in a nutshell, CPA it's a surtax, and it's earmarked for affordable housing, historic preservation, and open space. And so you can use that money. It's a local fee, and it's up to let me think about my Somerville days, 3% of property taxes. And there are many communities in Massachusetts who have chosen to adopt CPA.
So everybody pays extra tax.
Everybody pays a little bit, right? But it's a tiny bit, and that's the key thing that I think gets lost.
3% of what? 3% of the assessed value of my house, or 3% of my tax?
Of your tax.
3% of my tax, which is
Correct.
A small fraction of
that. Yes, it's a small fraction of that. So in Somerville, when we were looking at it a number of years ago, because when I was working in Somerville, we got it passed, and that was SEC, where I worked, was one of the lead organizations working on CPA. So I got very familiar with it. And I think the calculation was like $50 a year for most homeowners.
So let's say it's $50 a year. Then where does that money go? Yeah. So 50 times 10,000 houses. Now we got, oh my God, I need the data analytics team.
Oh,
so there's, it's a bigger number. It's a bigger number. And so we've got some 5 million or whatever the number is in the budget. Then what happens to that money? What does the city use that money for?
It's a pretty big number. And then those funds are matched by Massachusetts, right? So you raise it. And then Massachusetts matches it. The Commonwealth is going to match that money, and that money has to be spent on those three purposes. So it's affordable housing, historic preservation, and open space.
How does the city spend money on affordable housing?
Yeah,
they just subsidize. Is that the answer?
Yeah, the city can subsidize units. They're.
So I pay. Let me see if I can give you the layman. So I pay $50. Everybody pays $50. Somebody, instead of paying $1,000 a month, well, the rent's probably higher than that. So instead of paying $1,500 a month, they pay $1,000, and the other $500 comes from that. I don't know, 10 of us, whatever, have chipped in the $50. Is that roughly?
It's not that direct, right? Because what happens is that money is then used to create the units that have a subsidy attached to them.
Okay,
that can be done in a number of different ways. Generally, it's done through an affordable housing organization that's developing those units and then renting them affordably, because there's a subsidy attached to that unit.
Like a Gina does.
Yeah. Okay. I remember Gina talking about that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So thank you for entertaining me. I will yield the rest of my time.
You should get those drinks and then keep going.
Yes. No, happy.
Oh, you're very good at explaining it, because I think, again, like I'm not well educated on this topic, maybe many topics.
and again, I know that particularly CPA, I think, can be a hard sell, because every time you talk about raising taxes, there's kind of this,
Sure.
But I think if we look at the fact that we're leaving money on the table every year, Massachusetts would match this money.
Yeah. Where does that come from, though? Does that come out of my paycheck, or where does that come from?
No, that comes from the budget of the state. So
that's money's going to come from somewhere.
There. So Tom, you're not going to be paying anything extra in order to make this happen. What you're paying is what you're paying. Nothing is going to change about that. So what's going to change is your property tax, but nothing else about your life is going to change for the Commonwealth to match that money for Melrose.
It'll be better because we'll have a better community.
Yeah,
Correct.
That's interesting.
And I think at this point, more than 50% of our communities in Massachusetts have adopted CPA. So this isn't new. I mean, we can look at other places that have done this and have done this really successfully, and they're taking this money, and we're not. So, it's another way to look at it, that other people are taking this money anyway out of your paycheck, Tom, and we're not taking that money from Melrose.
Right. And I'm not really trying to debate you as much as I'm trying to understand it. And it's interesting that that's one sub issue of the whole housing thing. Like, it's just such a complicated thing to get your arms around, and then everything these days gets boiled down to one issue that people fist fight over, which makes it difficult to navigate these things.
Right. Well, when you come over for all of those martinis to discuss all of this, please explain how we should incentivize single-story retail buildings on Main Street to build higher with more with housing units. But we're going to save that for another day.
We'll save it for another day. Thank you, Sam. And just to say that the martini meetings have solved a lot of problems. Historically speaking, the track record is very, very high.
I am here for you. And Sam, I think you posted the link already to the strategies and the plan. I mean, I would really encourage everyone to go and look at it, because we tried to be creative in how we were thinking about it. And I think there are 8 strategies, and then, sub goals and sub strategies. And so there's there's the potential goal, and then there's this way to get there, there's this way, there's this way, there's this way for each one of them. And that's what we were trying to get folks to weigh in on. Like, how do you think we can do this? Because we can't, we're not going to decide on. There has to be buy-in from the community, so that you can get this done.
Yeah. And so, do you feel like seeing however many hundreds of people take the survey, is that encouraging, or do you want more than that? Like, how did you feel about that?
I think it was actually really encouraging to see. I think for me to see that much engagement with this topic, that is not something that most people feel like they want to engage with necessarily. I think MAPC did a great job. I think our Office of Housing here in the city, Denise and Emma, I mean, everyone did such a great job figuring out how to get folks to engage with this topic that's not particularly
if you got hundreds of responses to spend 60 to 90 minutes and dig through that, there's some passion behind that. That's Again, I will double check with the data analytics team on that statement, but that's pretty good. I can actually
give you the number on. We have a meeting on Thursday morning that I'm really, really looking forward to, because I really want to. I know that we all want to hear what folks said and kind of get the overview of what the conversation was. But I can probably give you an exact number of how many people engaged. And the results. I mean, we should probably have you back on at some point and just kind of talk through the results of that. So it sounds like the big component of that was actually educating people and engaging the passionate hundreds. And then you're going to learn from that. You're going to crunch the numbers and then probably try and pull out some themes and some ideas and see what the community is saying back to you. I think that would be interesting to have you back to kind of walk us through that a little bit. I would love that.
There's lots to discuss for a couple of years at least. So yes, coming back for revisiting some of these topics and updating us would be great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Happy to join anytime. Excellent.
All right. So maybe that's where we wrap for tonight and we get ready to dance it off. There's still, we've avoided the footloose syndrome in Melrose anyway, and we're still allowed to dance. And that's what we do.
You have another, don't you have another dancer in your house tonight?
I do have a dancer.
Oh, yes. Guest dancer.
Oh, I like this. Dancer. Hey, this is a new thing. Our guests bring on guests to the show.
How is that?
And we have to have her appoint the next guest.
I think she's avoiding the dance up.
Yes, we're dancing together. Okay.
Wow, the enthusiasm is off the charts.
Look at it.
All right, here we go, folks.
We'll
see you around town.